My wife has never said I love you when she's lying. That's how I know when she's about to screw me over. She suddenly starts acting like she's good. This morning, she didn't say it. She didn't even fake a smile. Just sipped her protein shake like a robot, checked her phone and said, "Long day ahead, material delivery to the Westfield site." Then she kissed me on the cheek without looking up. Cold, mechanical, the kind of kiss you'd give to someone you're already cheating on. I was standing by the sink when she walked out the door, still in her work boots, still playing the dedicated project coordinator. I watched her drive off in the truck I helped her finance, wearing the hard hat I bought her for Christmas. It had cost more than my first month's rent when I started in construction. She told me I was investing in her safety image. Right. Turns out I was funding a performance. I wasn't planning to check anything. Not that morning. I had a full Saturday mapped out. Equipment inspections, some permit paperwork, maybe finally fix that loose railing she keeps complaining about. But as I cleared our mugs, I remembered something. A project map she'd shown me 8 months ago during one of her team coordination rants, bragging about the new development zones they were managing. "Look at the scale of projects they're trusting us with," she wrote in an email, beaming. She'd attached the master site directory with all the active construction locations and photos. I remembered because I joked about how pretentious some of the development names sounded. Eastgate Commons, North Point Plaza, names that made warehouse districts sound like luxury resorts. So, just out of some twisted instinct, I pulled up that directory on my laptop, scrolled through the active sites. Eastgate Commons, sure. Even North Point Plaza and Southridge Center, but no Westfield site. I ran a search through the permit database I had access to as a superintendent. Nothing. I double-checked the municipal planning records using my contractor access portal, credential number MUN7749C. No active permits, no approved developments, no construction zones designated under Westfield anything. I wasn't imagining it. There was no Westfield construction site in our entire metro area. I sent a text. Short, cold. There is no Westfield construction site in the system. Nothing. 10 minutes pass, still nothing, which frankly says everything. My wife can fire off emoji reactions to Instagram posts in under 5 seconds. But this silence. Then, an hour later, something breaks. Not a text from her, but a call. Not to me, to her. I only hear it because I left the bedroom door cracked and she hadn't turned off her work phone the night before. It starts ringing on the nightstand. I'm in the hallway. I glance at the caller ID. It's her boss. I don't mean team lead or site manager. I mean the boss. The guy who signs her bonuses and approves her overtime claims. The call auto picks up too. Voicemail. I hear his voice shaking. Urgent. "Hey, call me back ASAP. How the hell does your husband know our site directories? Who is he?" Click. That's when I know I was right not to trust her. Because if a basic text about a non-existent construction site sends her director into a panic, then someone's hiding more than just an affair. I stare out the window at the empty street, the quiet neighborhood, the dog curled on the rug. Everything's still on the outside. Our life looks picture perfect. Inside, it's already burning. She just hasn't noticed the smoke yet. And here's where I'll say this. If you're still listening, subscribe. Seriously, most people scroll past without it, but it keeps this little engine running. And trust me, what's coming next, you don't want to miss. Because the thing is, my wife thought I was just her harmless construction husband. Steady, predictable, a guy who checks permits and walks job sites. She forgot what I did before I got safe. She forgot that before I was her husband, I built systems that tracked materials and money for a living. And this morning was never going to be just coffee. 4 months before the text, before the lie, before the panic call from her boss, I was sitting in my home office with blueprints spread across 2 tables, reviewing a foundation inspection report that frankly bored me to death. It started as a favor. My wife barged in one night while I was organizing some old permit files from a legacy project, dropped a USB drive onto my desk, and said, "You're the construction guy, right? Help us out with something." Her tone was sweet, but not grateful. More like she already knew I'd say yes. That's how she operated. Like doing things for her was just a natural extension of being married to her. "What's this?" I asked. "We're rolling out a new material tracking system. Helps coordinate deliveries across the new development sites, the ones with the environmental certifications and community partnerships. Remember, they wanted to look efficient, streamlined. You love that organizational stuff. She kissed my forehead and left. No further details, no permissions, no idea who authorized the access. Inside the drive, full project schematics, site layouts, delivery schedules, contractor databases. She never mentioned the depth of access they gave me, and she probably assumed I'd just grab a few maps and throw them into some simple tracking spreadsheet. But old habits die hard. I'd worked construction logistics before I got into site management, before I became the guy who made sure your neighborhood shopping center didn't collapse during the first winter storm. Back in the day, I tracked material flows for vulnerabilities, cost overruns, missing equipment. So, yeah, when someone hands me the full operational DNA of a multi-million-dollar development company, I don't just look, I archive. I dump the entire contents into my encrypted backup drive, tagged files, indexed project codes, ran a search to see permit anomalies and delivery discrepancies. And that's when I saw it. Phoenix Metro, Southwest Quadrant, between active sites Eastgate and South Point. A project code originally marked WF Dev, then updated 8 months prior to simply off-book admin only. No permit number, PE 2024-7891. No environmental clearance ENC PHX 445, but the material allocation had changed. Concrete orders tripled, steel delivery increased. Equipment rental noted in an attached contractor invoice that mysteriously had no corresponding work order. WO 2024-3476. I zoomed in on the site map. The delivery route curved just enough to give that location a blind spot from both adjacent highway cameras. I ran a query through the municipal permit API they'd provided me, accidentally I'm sure, to populate the tracking system. Eastgate Commons listed. South Point Plaza, yep. But nothing where Westfield should be. The system simply skipped the square footage where that development should exist. That's not a missed detail, that's intentional omission. And here's where the gears started turning. Why would a construction site, if that's even what it was, be deliberately excluded from a material tracking system? Why would it require admin-only access with no municipal oversight? Why did the permit file for that section list, Special Use Variance SUV 2024-11-87, and Limited Municipal Inspection, language I usually saw in emergency repairs or confidential government contracts? That night, I casually asked her, "Hey, what's between Eastgate and South Point? On the tracking system, there's a gap. Want me to just extend Eastgate's boundaries?" She didn't even blink. "Oh, that's just storage," she said while brushing her hair in the mirror. "Equipment staging, not worth tracking." Then she paused just a beat too long. "Why?" I shrugged. "Just curious. You know me, OCD about completing maps." She smiled. "You overthink everything?" That's when I knew I had to save everything. Not just the maps, the APIs, the delivery schedules. I downloaded cached material movement data from the test environment they'd given me access to, probably by accident. And I noticed something else. Every Tuesday between 9:15 and 11:45, that off-book site's delivery log showed activity. 2 authorization codes recurring. 1 was hers. I didn't tell her I saw that. Didn't even flinch when she said she might be working late again Tuesday because the development team was getting demanding. I just nodded. "You're the organized one now." She laughed and walked away, but I wasn't laughing because I knew she had no clue how deep I could dig. She handed me access like I was just her obedient construction husband, but she forgot that logistics coordinators don't just see patterns, we follow them, and I had just found a blind spot they built for hiding things. And I was going to shine a damn floodlight right into it. Ryan Porter hadn't replied to a text from me in 3 years. We didn't fall out. We just worked in a world where disappearing was part of the professional courtesy. He was the kind of guy who spoke like he was still inside a server rack. Quiet, efficient, eyes scanning for invisible problems in the system. I used to joke he had more bandwidth than empathy. But back when I worked on a logistics overhaul for a municipal contractor, he was the one who flagged a material misallocation that could have sunk the entire project. I handled the inspectors, took the heat, got him out clean. No contract termination, no black mark on his record. So, when I sent the message, just 4 words, "Need a small favor," I knew he'd read it. Whether he replied, that was the gamble. He replied 4 minutes later. You still drink beer? Bring one. I met him at his place. Cheap apartment, no decorations on the walls, and a computer humming in the bedroom like a mechanical pet. He didn't offer a chair, just pointed to a stool and gestured to the six-pack I brought. So, he said, opening his laptop, what exactly are we pretending I didn't help you with today? I slid over a printed site map. Westfield location circled in red. No preamble, no warm-up. Want to know who's been authorizing deliveries there? Past 2 months, maybe 3? He studied it, then leaned back with a grin. That site's off the municipal grid. Exactly. He cracked his knuckles. You know I left that company, right? I also know you left with admin credentials they forgot to revoke. He raised an eyebrow. You're not supposed to know that. And yet, I smiled. God, I miss working with someone who speaks fluent subtext. It took him about 20 minutes, not because it was hard, but because the company's delivery tracking system had been migrated to a new vendor last year, and the interface was garbage. He grumbled the entire time about how the new contractors didn't understand back-end data hygiene. Then he tapped a key. A list popped up. 6 authorization codes, 6 employees who'd approved deliveries to the Westfield location in the last 90 days, not including emergency overrides or weekend shifts. I recognized one immediately, my wife. Another, Charles Crawford, development director. Recent transfer from a failed infrastructure firm, now playing Mr. Efficiency at quarterly budget meetings. Married, 2 kids, liked to refer to himself as a strategic project integrator. The rest were lower-level staff, a materials coordinator, a site inspector, and 2 who didn't even match employee records. Contract consultants, probably. One name was linked to a Shell LLC out of Nevada. No online presence, no LinkedIn, just initials. I stared at the list, not saying a word, just tapping my finger next to each timestamp. Tuesdays, always Tuesdays. 9 a.m. to 11:45 a.m., like clockwork. Crawford authorized deliveries at 9:12, my wife at 9:23. She always logged out last. Ryan poured us each a beer. So, he said, are you going to confront her? I shook my head. You're just going to let it ride? Not quite, I said. I'm going to build something. He blinked. Build what? A case. Ryan raised his beer. You always were the slow burn type. That night I went home and didn't say a word to her. She was already in bed, pretending to be asleep. Her phone lit up once, probably a late Slack ping from the development team. She turned it face down. In the morning, she was chipper, overselling it. You okay? She asked, tilting her head like a concerned therapist in a sitcom. Yeah, I said. Just a lot on my mind lately. She smiled and touched my arm. Let me know if you need to talk. I almost laughed, but I didn't, because I needed her to feel safe. That was the key. She had to keep thinking I was the same harmless husband, the guy who checks permits for fun and doesn't know how to access encrypted delivery logs. She had no idea what I had now, and no idea what I'd always had, connections and patience. So, no, I wasn't going to yell or accuse or demand to see her texts. I was going to document every single Tuesday like it was a forensic audit. Cross-reference delivery logs, build a timeline, overlay it with equipment rental data, even sync it with municipal inspection schedules. Because the site may not be on the books, but the concrete truck still told a story. I wasn't here for drama. I was here for evidence. The best lies aren't spoken. They're routine operations, polished down to logistics and timing. And my wife had mastered hers. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that construction sites have routines too. Equipment cycles, delivery schedules, inspection protocols, and most importantly, municipal oversight footage. Ryan texted me a link. Encrypted cloud folder, 2 weeks worth of traffic camera recordings from the highway intersection near the supposed Westfield site. Only reason it exists is for DOT liability in case someone gets hurt during rush hour, he wrote. Enjoy. I watched the first clip. Tuesday morning, 9:18 a.m. My wife's truck appears in frame, work clothes crisp, company logo visible. She turns toward a dirt road that officially doesn't exist on any municipal map. Next clip, 9:25 a.m. Charles Crawford's SUV, premium model, company plates. He follows the same route, no hesitation, like he's done it 100 times. Then, 11:32 a.m. he exits first. Jacket now dusty, clipboard in hand, swiping at his phone like he's already moved on to the next performance. At 11:47, my wife leaves, calm, work clothes slightly dirty, eyes flicking once toward the camera before turning back to the main highway. Next Tuesday, same pattern. The Tuesday after that, identical, like a glitch in a construction schedule. It wasn't the affair that hit me. I'd already accepted that. Emotionally, I'd already buried the marriage 2 delivery logs ago. What hit me was how systematic it was. A ritual, staggered arrivals, staggered departures. She stayed longer, always longer, maybe to coordinate cleanup, maybe to wait for the road to clear. But then, last Tuesday, I'm drinking coffee, watching the same grainy footage on my monitor. It plays out like before. Wife enters, 7 minutes later, Crawford enters. But at 11:19, he leaves earlier than usual. He looks tense. His clipboard is gone. He keeps adjusting his sleeve like something's sticking to his skin. Something feels off. 10 minutes pass. Then another vehicle enters frame. Different model, stockier build, wearing an unmarked work vest, no company logos visible. He approaches the dirt road, looks both ways, and drives in. Wait. Drives in. That's key. He didn't pause, didn't check GPS. He had directions. I pause the clip, zoom in. Face partially obscured, but the build, the way he drives with one hand slightly favoring the wheel, it's familiar. I know him from a project meeting 3 years ago. One of the few times my wife brought me to her company's annual safety conference. There was a group photo, her team, their spouses, a few external contractors. She made a point to delete that photo off her phone the same night. Said it was blurry and unflattering, but I'd seen it before it disappeared. Saved it to my cloud backup out of habit. I dig it up. Open the image, scroll through the background. There he is, standing beside my wife. Not next to his wife, if he had one, but next to mine, smiling at her like they had an inside joke. Wearing the same crooked company badge, same uneven stance. I run a reverse image search. Nothing conclusive, but I catch a watermark from a materials consulting firm based in Nevada. His name was never on any employee roster I could find in her company's org charts. But if he had access to the site, he wasn't just a stranger. He was part of something they kept off the municipal books. At that point, I stopped watching the footage. Not because I'd had enough, but because I'd seen too much. This isn't just an affair. This is access control, off-book sites, repeat patterns, unregistered personnel, layers. I start listing out theories in a notebook. Not because I'm guessing, but because I'm narrowing down. Each Tuesday is a blueprint, an operation. And my wife isn't just cheating, she's coordinating. She's the logistics manager. And that realization doesn't break me, it calibrates me. I stop being a husband with hurt feelings. I start being a superintendent with a working theory, which means my next move won't be emotional, it'll be tactical. Because whatever is happening at that Westfield site, it goes far beyond intimacy. My hands didn't shake when I unlocked the file cabinet. I wish they had. I wish I could say I hesitated, that I sat there like some betrayed husband weighing right and wrong. But the truth is, by then, I didn't care about boundaries. She burned those the moment she turned a fake construction site into her private operation and handed access codes to unregistered contractors. The cabinet was bottom drawer, hidden beneath a stack of old permit applications and equipment manuals, what she called my bureaucracy graveyard. I hadn't opened it in years because she asked me not to. I remember the exact moment she gave me the file. Last fall, she came home tense, eyes darting like she was rehearsing a lie. Said she had a stack of contract paperwork she needed stored securely, but couldn't upload to the company cloud because of confidentiality issues. She handed me a manila envelope with a rubber band wrapped around it twice. "Don't open it," she said, placing it on my desk. "It's just old contractor stuff. You'd be bored anyway." "Then why not just lock it at the office?" She hesitated. "Because I trust you more than the filing system." That line always sounded rehearsed, but I didn't press. Not then. Now, I peeled off the rubber band like it was nothing, like it wasn't the last pretense of trust between us. Inside, maybe 30 pages, mostly photocopies, a few printed emails with headers, a couple of invoices with account numbers poorly redacted. But the meat of it was a single document, a consulting agreement. The client, Westfield Strategic Development. Address, Henderson, Nevada. Suite number, nothing, just a P.O. box. I paused. The name was exactly what I expected. This was the shell company behind the fake construction site. I opened my laptop, pulled up the spreadsheet where I'd been logging every anomaly, delivery authorizations, off-book site access, unregistered names, and there it was. That unlisted contractor, the man from the traffic camera. He wasn't just somebody with site access, he was the founding partner of Westfield Strategic. Not only that, he was the primary signatory on the contract in the file, signed 8 months before the first delivery to the fake site was logged. I scrolled through the agreement. The language was vague. Operational consulting, process optimization, non-specific deliverables. Classic shell contract structure. But here's what made my jaw tighten. The payment schedule was listed as monthly recurring consultation. The amount, $22,000. Source of funds, her department's discretionary materials budget. 22 grand every month. For what? According to internal reports, at least the public ones, her department had made strategic efficiency improvements last fiscal year. Let go of 2 inspectors, froze equipment upgrades, canceled their quality assurance service contract, and transitioned to streamlined oversight. And yet, here was $22,000 a month going to a shell firm with no online footprint and a board consisting of 2 people, one of whom had just driven onto a construction site that didn't officially exist. I went back to the envelope. Tucked between the pages was a single sticky note in her handwriting. If anything happens, destroy this. Nothing else. I held that note in my fingers like it was evidence in a murder trial. Because at that point, this wasn't about an affair. It was about unauthorized contracts, potential fraud. And my wife, she wasn't just an accomplice. She was the one authorizing the payments. I sat there in the glow of my laptop screen and a cheap desk lamp and stared at the web I'd uncovered. She wasn't hiding a romance. She was hiding liability. And here's what chilled me most. She hadn't asked me to lock that envelope away because she trusted me. She did it because she knew I never throw out documentation, that I'm too paranoid to ever delete a file. She counted on that. She knew I'd protect her secrets, and for months I did. Now, I was going to weaponize them. Not because I wanted revenge, but because somewhere along the way, my wife stopped being a person I loved and started becoming a threat I needed to contain. And I contain threats for a living. It was almost insulting how easy it was to walk into the municipal building. Same security checkpoint, same board guard half-watching sports highlights on his phone. No one questions a man in work clothes with a municipal contractor badge swinging confidently around his neck. I'd kept the badge for years. Call it paranoia. Call it professional habit. When my contract ended during a system migration, I never mailed it back, slid it into a box marked miscellaneous in my closet and forgot about it until last night. Today I walked in at 10:15 a.m. The elevator still smelled like burned coffee and bureaucracy. I passed the ground floor permit office where contractors clustered with clipboards and frustrated expressions. I knew the layout better than most employees. I'd helped install their digital filing system. At 10:35 sharp, I knocked on the door marked Municipal Oversight and Compliance, the kind of office meant to make people nervous and move quickly. A woman in her early 50s opened the door. No badge, no nameplate, just eyes that sized me up instantly. "Can I help you?" "Yes," I said calmly, reaching into my work bag. "I have information your general counsel needs to see. Regarding breach of municipal contracts, misuse of development funds, and possibly felony-level fraud." I handed over the manila envelope. "Time-sensitive. This has been happening under your noses for over 8 months." She took the envelope without a word, opened it, flipped 3 pages in. I watched her expression shift. Not panic. Calculation. That's how you know you're speaking to someone important. They don't react. They assess risk. "Who are you?" she asked. "Former municipal contractor. My wife is coordinating deliveries to the Westfield site right now." "Doing what?" "I'll let the delivery logs and contract cross-references speak for themselves," I said. "But if you wait too long, the window to cheese. Contain this before it hits the state auditors, or, worse, your budget committee. We'll close." She looked at the envelope again, then at me. "This includes employee names. I only included the ones already appearing in the delivery authorization logs. You'll see the pattern. Tuesdays every week, you have traffic footage. Use it." She gestured for me to follow her inside, closed the door quietly. I spent the next hour in a small conference room with 2 compliance officers and 1 extremely silent legal associate who showed up 15 minutes in with a laptop and began typing like her career depended on it. They didn't interrupt much, just clarified. "You're saying this LLC, Westfield Strategic, is tied to both your wife and the development director?" "Yes." "And the payments documented here, cross-referenced with delivery timestamps, all match?" "Down to the minute. And the traffic footage, I can't legally supply it, but if your transportation department pulls intersection cam footage from Highway 89 and Baseline Road for the past 8 Tuesdays, the pattern will be undeniable." They didn't ask me what my motive was. They didn't need to. Anyone smart enough to get through their door without credentials knew that personal betrayal was a given. But what I gave them was proof. And that made me more than just a disgruntled spouse. That made me useful. At 11:45, I stood up to leave. "Will you be filing a formal investigation?" one of them asked. "No," I said. "I'm just the guy who noticed the municipal records don't have a Westfield site until you drive there." And then I walked out, back down the elevator, past security, and out into the daylight. Not angry, not triumphant. Just precise. Because I didn't come here to get answers. I came here to remove her from the equation. And I just handed them the blueprint. There's a moment right before the collapse when everything slows. The schedules still run, the emails still send, the coffee still brews, but the air thickens. People start talking quieter, smiling less, doors close faster behind them. By Thursday, the tension inside the municipal building was a living thing. The compliance team didn't storm in with clipboards and search warrants. They didn't make announcements or send warning emails. That's not how these things happen. When a government department's own audit system flags irregularities, the response is surgical. They started by freezing all consulting contracts under $30,000. That's the bracket Westfield Strategic sat in. The sweet spot where no one audits you unless the numbers spike. Procurement managers were pulled into hushed meetings. Access to the budget dashboard was restricted. Every Tuesday's delivery log for the last 8 months was pulled, archived, duplicated, cross-referenced. Transportation was told to run diagnostics on intersection cameras. Routine traffic pattern analysis, they said. Ryan sent me a message. That afternoon, one line, "They're in the system pulling everything." He didn't have to say more. By Friday, the office atmosphere was noticeably different. People stopped lingering in the break room. One mid-level materials coordinator, who always wore that stupid reflective safety vest, was escorted out by internal affairs. No noise, no argument, just a quiet walk to the lobby with a woman in a dark jacket carrying a sealed folder. I wasn't there, of course, but I didn't need to be. The next week, Charles Crawford was put on administrative leave, internal memo, vague language about procedural review. Government speak for lawyers are circling, and my wife, she felt it. She came home late, still dressed like she was trying to impress the oversight committee. Work clothes clean, clipboard organized, but her eyes were raw, puffy like she'd cried just enough to reset herself in the parking lot. I was in the living room, lights low, dog curled up at my feet, the TV playing one of those nature documentaries that made silence feel louder. She stood in the doorway longer than usual, then sat down slowly on the edge of the couch like the weight of the week hadn't left her knees. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. I didn't turn to her, just let the narrator explain predator-prey relationships while eagles circled overhead. She tried again. "Did you tell someone?" I waited a beat, then another, then turned just enough to look her in the eye. "I looked into the site you said existed." That was it. No accusation, no yelling, just that one line, and it landed like a crack in tempered glass. Silent, but spreading. She blinked once, twice, then looked away. "Whatever you think," I held up a hand. Not loud, just enough to stop her mid-excuse. She didn't try again. She just sat there, hands in her lap, watching eagles hunt while smaller animals tried to hide. She didn't know what I had. She didn't know who I'd talked to. But now she knew I wasn't guessing anymore. And for someone who built her power on being 10 steps ahead, that silence was worse than any confrontation. That night, she didn't touch her phone, didn't scroll, didn't check Slack. She just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, breathing like someone waiting for the next shoe to drop. And me? I slept like I was finally in control of the narrative. Because this wasn't just about betrayal, this was about leverage. And I had all of it. The investigator met me at a diner. Not the municipal building, not her office, not mine. Neutral ground. The kind of place where oversight committees don't issue subpoenas or record conversations. Just a woman in a blazer with a folder tucked under her arm, and a look that said she'd seen far worse than I had to offer. "Mr. Hayes," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. She didn't ask if I wanted to talk. She knew I did. "Not here in any official capacity," she began. "Just gathering." "Context." I nodded, waited. "You knew about the shell company?" I knew the name, I knew the contracts, I knew the delivery patterns. She blinked slowly. "Then you're 3 steps ahead of half our department." She took out a folder, no seal, no stamps. She didn't open it, just placed it on the table, fingers resting lightly on top, like she was taking a pulse. "We've been watching Westfield Strategic for a while, not formally, just whispers. Irregular payments, strange purchase orders. But what your evidence gave us wasn't just fraud, it gave us intent." She paused. "But there's something else now." She opened the folder. "Did you know about the harassment complaints?" I looked up sharply. "What?" "Not against your wife," she clarified. "Against the development director, Crawford." I stared at the folder. "There have been 4, she continued, all from junior-level female employees. None ever made it past initial HR mediation. The internal channels, well, let's say they were designed to redirect, not resolve." I clenched my jaw. Not because I didn't believe her, but because I absolutely did. "He used sites like Westfield," she said. "That wasn't new. It was just quiet until your footage, your delivery data, your contract logs lit the match." She turned the folder so I could see the first page. A matrix of internal HR codes, red tags marked pending escalation. My wife's name was there right next to Crawford's. Red. "Why?" I asked, my voice lower. "She didn't touch anyone," the investigator said, "but she facilitated access, authorized site usage, approved budget allocations for off-record contractor engagements, including the consultant you identified, who we now know had no formal contract with us despite the payment trail." I didn't say anything. I just stared at her name in red ink. "She's not the predator," the investigator continued, "but she enabled one, willingly, repeatedly, and in our line of work, that is just as prosecutable." She closed the folder, let it sit there between us like a third person at the table. "We're building a case," she said. "If we go forward, and I mean truly go forward, we'll need someone with your access, your logs, your knowledge of the delivery systems, contractor networks, budget processes. Legal won't like it, but compliance is pushing hard." "What do you need from me?" I asked, already knowing. "Formal cooperation," she said. "Just a signature. You'll stay anonymous, but your evidence won't." I didn't blink. I didn't ask for a lawyer. I didn't ask if it would destroy her. Because by then, I had stopped caring. She hadn't just broken our marriage. She'd broken people. Young women, new employees, people who trusted the system. And she had opened the door. Literally, authorization by authorization. "I'm in," I said, voice like concrete. The investigator nodded, already sliding a document across the table. Just enough to get things rolling, just enough to make it real. She paused before leaving. "Most spouses don't help us," she said. "Even when they're betrayed, they want to stay out of it. Or they want revenge." "This isn't revenge," I replied, folding the document. "What is it then?" I stood. "It's demolition." She looked like she wanted to say something else, but she didn't. She just walked out, leaving the folder behind. And I took it home. Not because I needed more proof, but because I wanted to see on paper just how far she'd fallen. She didn't come home until after midnight. Her truck, usually parked with precision in our driveway, was crooked, one tire on the grass. That alone told me everything. My wife didn't do sloppy, not with her schedules, not with her paperwork, and definitely not with her parking. The front door opened slowly. She stepped in, work bag in hand, but not carrying it like usual. She held it like it might explode. I didn't speak. She put the bag down by the wall and stood in the doorway to the living room for what felt like a full minute. Finally, she spoke. "How? How much did you know?" I let her question hang in the air, let it settle into the silence like dust on a demolished site. Then, still watching the TV screen, I answered, "Enough to know Westfield wasn't just for deliveries." She exhaled, shaky, almost a gasp, like something inside her snapped and didn't bother to make noise. But that was just the aftermath. The collapse had already happened. 2 weeks prior, when I handed compliance the blueprint for her destruction, Crawford was terminated, facing criminal charges. The shell company dissolved under federal investigation. 4 young women finally had their voices heard. And my wife? She wasn't just unemployed, she was unemployable. Her municipal contractor license revoked, her professional references destroyed, her authorization credentials permanently flagged in the system. That night, she didn't sleep in our room. She didn't cry. She just sat at the kitchen table, phone dark, laptop closed, staring at the foundation of everything she'd built crumbling beneath her. Not broken, just demolished. No one was coming to save her. Not her boss, not her lawyers, not her husband. Especially not her husband. Some structures are built to last. Others are designed to fall when you remove the right support beam. I'd spent months studying her architecture, and when the time came, I knew exactly where to place the charges.